Hey, this is Nathan Dawkin from Fantrax HQ, as well as the NastyCast and Fantrax Dynasty Baseball Podcast, and you're listening to Pop Goes Your World.
If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes, and while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.
And now, it's time for our feature presentation.
I'm Chris McBrien, and the pop culture from Generation X is everything to me.
And I'm Derek Myers, and I'm here to educate Chris on the great pop culture of today's generation.
Episode 360, Private Parts Movie Review. Is Private Parts the greatest movie ever made about radio? And how did a film starring a non-actor playing himself become one of the most entertaining biopics of the 90s? Let's find out. I'm Chris McBrien along with Derek Myers, and this is Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations. This week, Derek and I are going back to 1997 to review the Howard Stern biopic, Private Parts. And we're lucky enough to be joined by our good friend and frequent guest, Greg Martin. Greg, as a former radio personality, we thought it'd be a good idea to have you join us to do this movie. So welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining us once again.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. I absolutely... When I was younger, I used to see Howard Stern as an idol and like an inspiration. So having the opportunity to come on and not only talk about his movie, but to talk about just him in general and his contributions to radio, I wasn't going to say no. So absolutely.
Should be a good time. But before we get to our movie review, Derek, you want to kick us off? What's new in your world of pop culture?
Yeah, I had a chance to watch two new movies this week. Nice. One in the theater, one on the streamers, both from 2026, and both got 2 thumbs up from me. So the first one is, we'll call it a thriller, not a horror, but it was called Send Help. It stars Rachel McAdams, and it's directed by Sam Raimi. And I'll just read you the little blurb here. It says, an overworked analyst and her arrogant Nepo baby boss survive a plane crash near Thailand and must cooperate to survive on a remote jungle island while their workplace power dynamic collapses around them. And let me tell you, this movie was fantastic. Oh, wow. I had heard great things when it came out, and I'd been really looking forward to seeing it. It just started. It showed up on the streamers, I think this week or last week. I watched it on Disney Plus myself, so I assume that's where most people can find it. And yeah, it was great. 2 thumbs up. It's one of these ones where you kind of don't want to know too much going in. And I remember when it came out, a lot of like dude, bro, macho men really got angry about it. Mainly because it's that total power dynamic shift where the woman ends up with all the power. And it was great. I mean, just the way it's set up in the movie, you can totally see that's where it's going, but it's so satisfying to watch. It was really, really good. So 2 huge thumbs up for me for Send Help. And then I had a chance to go to the movie theater this week, and I watched Masters of the Universe, also known as the He-Man movie. And it was great as well. Wow. Honestly, I went in with such low expectations.
Did you see the one from the 80s? Did you ever watch that one?
I did not. I'm familiar with it. I never actually watched it.
I never watched it either.
Bad.
I heard it was terrible, but this one's good.
This one was great.
Wow.
I mean, the first 15 minutes, there's like this really great sort of world-building action sequence. It's sort of like, this is what you're going to get. And I just turned to my buddy, and I'm like, I think this is going to be the greatest movie I've ever seen. Now, the bar got real low. It's sort of the first 10 minutes really sucks you in, and then it slows down a bit while it establishes a story and all the rest of that. But even like, I'm sort of a casual Masters of the Universe fan. The He-Man toys were sort of a little after my time. The cartoon was a little after my time. I am very familiar with all of that, but it's never been like it's never had the same place as like Star Wars and G.I. Joe and Transformers. But man, this movie was really good. I really enjoyed it, and it didn't take itself too seriously, which I think is part of the reason it worked. Now, it's getting very mixed reviews, but it reminds me of some of the Marvel movies where critics don't like it, but the fans that know the property love it, and that sort of seems to be the same thing with this. So I did feel it was a little long. It runs about 2 hours and 15 minutes, but honestly, I didn't feel like it was dragging at any point. I just sort of, after the fact, looked back and thought, yeah, they probably could have cut 10 or 15 minutes out of it, but no, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's not going to be for everyone. And even the theater I was in, it was parents bringing their kids. It was teenagers. It was people a little older than me. Like, it was a wide variety in the theater. It wasn't just all like 50-year-old men going, oh my God, it's my favorite toy on screen. I mean, there was certainly some of that. And I'll admit, some of it was coming from the seats right where I was sitting. But no, I really enjoyed this one. So those are my two for this week.
Nice. What's new in your world of pop culture, Greg?
Well, I'm a big music guy, right? So obviously yes. I got love it. And I got my summer lineup of concerts coming up. And so, of course, I want to get in the mood for these things. So I'm going to see, I got tickets for probably close to a dozen shows for the summer. But two of the shows I'm going to are being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. So I've been getting into the mood. And the first one that I want to see, I'm going to see Iron Maiden at the end of August.
Were you always a big Iron Maiden fan when you were growing up?
You know what? Iron Maiden was the first concert I ever went to in my life, right?
So you really
I've always had an attachment for it.
I never really, I gotta be honest,
loved it.
I never really liked Iron Maiden, and here's why. I always felt that they took themselves a little bit too seriously. I don't know. That was always my take on them. But
I'll be honest with you, I liked them until the reason I'm going is in the last few tours that they've come around, they've been saying, we're going to play nothing but new material, maybe a couple old songs. That's it. But basically playing the whole new album and a couple of old songs. And I appreciate that they're honest about it before they go on tour. You're not buying a $200 ticket and finding out they're not playing all the hits. But this time around, they're like, okay, listen, this tour, we're playing all the hits from the first 9 albums. And then after this tour, you'll never hear those songs ever again live. We're putting them in the vault. They're done. And so I've been following the tour because it's been going on for a while, and the set list stays the same. They don't really change it up. And the set list is just killer, all hits. It's fantastic. So I was like, all right, I'll go. And of course, they put out a documentary out in the theater called Burning Ambition, which was about the history of Iron Maiden. Now, the band, before the movie came out, said, listen, we had nothing to do with this documentary. We didn't participate in it in any way, so take it for what it is. But I still went anyways. And I got to be honest with you, if you're a Maiden fan like myself, I'm an absolute sponge. So I drink in and take in anything that's Iron Maiden related. I want to know all about it. And I didn't really learn anything new from the documentary. It was nice to see old footage and things like that, but at the same time, I didn't learn anything that I didn't really know before going into the documentary. And I found that they've had 3 lead singers in their career. They had Paul Di'Anno and then Bruce Dickinson. And then after Bruce Dickinson left, they had Blaze Bayley for a very short time. And then when they realized Blaze Bayley wasn't going to work, they brought back Bruce Dickinson. And they really spent no time talking about the other 2. The only cool footage was Blaze Bayley. They were showing how the fans really did not like him as the singer. And when he was performing with them, they would throw garbage at him and throw bottles at him.
Not good.
Spit on him and stuff.
Got to be like in the Blues Brothers and play behind chicken wire.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. But the other one that I did go to see, or I didn't go see it, but I watched it on TV on Disney Hulu. I'm sure a lot of your demographics watch this one. It was called Wu-Tang Clan: An American Saga. Now, it was done in 2019, so it's been a while, but it was 3 seasons, 10 episodes a season, but an hour each episode. So you got 30 hours of the Wu-Tang Clan. So I am going to see the Wu-Tang Clan here in Toronto in September. It's their farewell tour, supposedly. We'll see. But it's, I got so caught up in the show that after I was done watching the show, I ended up picking up a book called From the Streets of Shaolin, the Wu-Tang Saga, which was written by S.H. Fernando Jr., and again, that was 600 pages long. But if you want to know anything about the Wu-Tang Clan, it's a great book to read if you're wanting to learn about them or you're just kind of have an interest. I always tell people I'm not super huge on the music of the Wu-Tang Clan. I do like it, obviously, but it's their story. I normally don't like when hip hop artists get put into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm kind of I don't think they deserve that or this or that. But when they announced the Wu-Tang Clan this year, I'm like, that was right. That was a good call. They changed the game of hip hop by introducing a rap group that had 9 MCs in it. with 9 different styles, and their story is quite incredible. Like, it's a lengthy story, so I won't get into it. But the story of the Wu-Tang Clan and the evolution of the Wu-Tang Clan has always been a big thing for me. So if you do like the Wu-Tang Clan for some weird reason, listening to the podcast, check it out. Wu-Tang Clan: An American Saga. You can find that on Disney Hulu.
Nice. Guys, in my world of pop culture, I got something new this week. I want to mention The Mandalorian and Grogu. And the reason I bring it up, it's in theaters. My son started watching The Mandalorian on Disney years ago when it first came out. And so I said to him, hey, Mandalorian and Grogu, it's in theaters. You want to go? He's like, nah, I don't want to go. I'm like, okay, whatever. But the thing that got me thinking about this was, okay, so you guys have both seen The Mandalorian. Derek, you've seen it, I think.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, we talked about it last week. Yeah, I saw it.
Here's my question.
Yeah, I saw Mandalorian. It was okay.
So here's the thing that I don't know about this show, or I'm always wondering about the show. Why was this show not about Boba Fett? It was about a bounty hunter like Boba Fett, who was a Mandalorian like Boba Fett. It takes place in the Star Wars universe where Boba Fett is. And then they went on to make another show called The Book of Boba Fett. So why not just make Boba Fett be the Mandalorian? I never understood that. Can anyone explain that to me?
I could field this one for you.
Please.
It largely comes down to legality and who had the rights to what. The plan was to make a Boba Fett movie, and they made Rogue One, and they were like, wow, these spinoffs are great. Look how good Rogue One is. Then they're like, we should do a Han Solo movie. And they're like, yes. And they go, as soon as that's done, we'll do Boba Fett. Then they put out the Han Solo movie, and everyone went, oh my God, this movie sucks. We can't put out another movie this bad. People will hate us, especially for a character like Boba Fett that everyone seems to think is awesome. So there was like a lot of legality around, well, maybe we'll come back and make a movie out of this. And so they're like, well, we're ready to do something right now. And they tapped Jon Favreau and said, you did Iron Man, and look what that did for the Marvel Universe. What do you got for Star Wars? And he goes, well, I have this Boba Fett-like idea. And they're like, you can't use Boba Fett. Okay, well, we'll make a similar yet different character and take it in a different direction. And they're like, yeah, that should get around our legal problems. And so that's largely why they did it.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, I just always wondered about that. And, how I feel about anything outside of the original trilogy. Don't really like it. But anyway, so I didn't end up going to see Mandalorian and Grogu. But I had that question. And I also got this for you.
Here's your dad joke of the week.
Guys, why does Snoop Dogg carry an umbrella?
Oh, man. I'm a little worried to find out the answer to this one. No, I have no idea. Chris, why?
Faux drizzle.
I was worried it was because it was going to rain
crap.
cats. Yeah, it was going to rain cats and dogs. That's that was my guess.
Yeah. But you know me, Derek. I'm the champion of Gen X pop culture.
Simpsons did it.
Yeah.
Simpsons did it. Yeah.
Man, that Beyonce sure is hot.
I'm already not comfortable where this is going, but okay.
You've got mail, M-A-L-E.
There we go.
Very good. Okay.
Jeez.
Figure that one out on your own.
You may have some explaining about your internet history.
No kidding. We did it in Canada first.
I overlooked the obvious answer there.
All right. Half of you men run over to the town square, and the others will run with mucus. All right, this week we're going to review Private Parts from 1997, the Howard Stern movie. And it is based on Howard Stern's best-selling autobiography of the same name. And it chronicles his rise from basically an awkward radio geek to probably the most controversial broadcaster in the world. And this movie not just focuses on his radio career, but it focuses on his marriage and his battles with management that he has, and really his evolution into this phenomenon that he became. I want to talk about initial reactions to this movie. So what is your relationship with this film? I'll start by mine. Myself, and Brian Longmire, the guy that does the drops for this show, me and him he's a radio guy, and he has been for years. And so we both were really into radio. And so when this came out in 97, we were like, oh, we got to go see this movie. It's going to be great. We're just going to love it. We were the only two people in the theater that saw it. And we loved it.
Was this in Port Elgin?
It was in Port Elgin, my hometown where I grew up. And we went, one of the reasons why we went too, because Brian had spent time down in down near Detroit, and so he was down there when way back in the early 80s when Stern was doing a show in Detroit. And he was like, I love this guy. He's amazing. He's on this station. And then he just kind of followed him ever since then. So I went to see this movie in the theater. Derek, did you see it in the theater, or when did you first watch it?
It came out when I was at university, and I want to say I did not see it in the theater, but I think I saw it immediately when it came out on video, because I'm pretty sure I was either working at Blockbuster or I knew people working at Blockbuster, so I think I got a free rental at it. Actually, no, I would have been working at Blockbuster, so I definitely saw it as a free rental at Blockbuster.
And Greg, what's your relationship with this movie?
Almost like similar to your friend. I actually I didn't really know a lot about Howard Stern, but I read his book first, his book Private Parts, that came out by Neil Strauss, and I thought it was hilarious. Like, I
liked
love him, obviously,
good, yeah.
But his book Private Parts was so funny and so incredible. And the thing was, I ended up working at the radio station in Windsor at the time, and he was in syndication. He wasn't in Detroit. He was in syndication, but we were in the Detroit radio market, and we had our own morning show at the radio station too, but we knew very well not to compete. Like, we are not going to, it was a fight between Howard Stern was on one competitor station, and the other competitor station had Ted Nugent as the morning host. And so we knew very well, we were like, yeah, we don't stand a chance between these two. But I remember being very, very sort of influenced, very impressed, because I loved what Howard Stern was doing. So this movie, when I went to see it twice in the theater when it opened at the mall, the Devonshire Mall in Windsor. I went twice, and then rented it a bunch of times on video, bought it when it became available to buy. So when it first came out, like 30 years ago, I was big on it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. But I got to be honest with you, like, watching it this week, I don't know if maybe in the 30 years I've aged a little bit or what have you, but it was still funny. Like, I still laughed at a whole lot of parts. But the movie to me was it hit a little bit different this time around than it did when I used to watch it like 30 years ago. But it's still like an enjoyable movie. But
how did it hit differently?
Different this time.
How did
Yeah,
it
Greg, I felt the same way. We'll get into it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Why did it hit differently for you this time? What was it?
I think just there were like when 30 years ago when he was doing that type of stuff that he does, it was very relevant and very needed for radio at the time. Like, the art of radio had died. Like, radio was a dying art back in the mid 90s. People had sort of moved away from radio because you used to listen to radio because, you know, when you're in your car, you had your radio. When you're at home, you had your radio. But now everybody had CDs or cassette players in their car, or they had, they had stereos at home. So the art of radio had died off. And then Howard Stern came along, and he was doing just such crazy things that, you know, all of a sudden people took an interest again in listening to radio. Because, as I said in the movie a number of times, people just wanted to know what he was going to do next. You know, like, he was just, every day he was doing something so shocking, and it spawned the term shock jock, you know?
Yeah.
And, that became, like, you know, a catch name back in the day. But I just found that by watching this movie this time around, some of the stuff that he was doing, again, 30 years ago, we'd laugh at or we'd find funny. Whereas I think, you know, with the things we know today and everything we know today, the way we are today, it didn't come off as funny as it did 30 years ago.
I think people get hung up on the fact that, especially people that maybe don't listen to him all the time or are not that familiar, they just think of Howard Stern as, like you said, shock jock. He pushes the boundaries in comedy. For me, he was always so much more than that, because he was about honesty and self-deprecation. And those two things, even today, like, it's easy to look at it now and go, oh, now with YouTube and all this stuff and people on there yelling and screaming and everything else, you know, they're pushing the boundaries all the time. Yeah, that's fine. But Stern was different because he was honest and he was self-deprecating. And these guys now are not doing this stuff. So I still think all these years later, it still hit for me when I watched the movie. I thought it was just as good now as was then, on my take anyway. And the thing was, if you go back in time to the 90s, like, he was a best-selling author. He was this ratings juggernaut, always battling the FCC. And he used to appear on TV quite a bit, too, which was very odd for a radio guy. Like, he'd go on Letterman and stuff. So he was, you know, quite the sensation. And that's probably why the movie got made in 97. Like you said, his autobiography was a bestseller. They recognized he had a loyal audience. there was probably some skepticism, I would think, whether or not he could carry a major motion picture. But so here's my question then today, and Derek, we'll start with you. Could a modern media personality, whether it's a YouTuber or someone like that, do you think they could pull off, doing this today? Like would they make a movie about, I don't know, like one of these YouTubers or something like Mr. Beast or something like that? Or is it just not the same?
Well, I don't think a movie would be the right medium to do it. I do think they could do it today. I do think they probably have done it today, but I think the audience you're trying to reach is not going to a movie theater to watch it. I think it's going to be a prestige miniseries. I think it's going to be a YouTube series. I think it's going to go to the medium that is most relevant to the people you're trying to reach. And that was one of so similar to what Greg was saying. Like when I watched it this week, I remember this movie very fondly. I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, it's been a long time since I saw it, and while I did like a lot of what was in this, and it hit some of that nostalgia that we talk about all the time, I did feel that it just didn't hit the same way, and I think partly that's because it was very much a product of its time, and 30 years later, some of what at the time was seen as edgy and pushing the envelope and stuff now just seems maybe not as edgy, but also more inappropriate. Like I think, don't get me wrong, nothing makes me laugh more than immature and fart jokes. But there's just something about this movie. Like obviously it's only highlights and segments of his career, but there were some things where I just thought, like now that we sort of know what we know and looking back with a little more maturity, shall we say, some of the things I'm like, I understand why it was in the movie and why it was important, but it's like, I didn't necessarily find it as funny or as entertaining. But I obviously, as a historical document, if you want to think of it that way, I definitely understand why the things were done the way they were done, when they were done, and why they were included in the movie.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the cast a little bit. Obviously, Howard Stern, we got to start there. This was very risky, I think, for the studio to take this guy with no major acting experience and make him carry virtually every scene in this.
Yeah.
But it works, and I think you got to praise, he has natural screen presence. There's no two ways about it.
For a DJ, that's
and for pretty, a goofy they always DJ,
say, you have a face for radio. Yeah. It's like, but he actually pulled it off.
I feel like his willingness to portray himself as insecure and obsessive helped this movie. And again, it feeds into his personality. He apparently spent months working with acting coaches and stuff like that. So Greg, you are a radio guy, former radio guy for sure. In Stern, you said you really liked listening to him back, and then he was a bit of an inspiration to you. So why was he? What was he doing that you liked so much?
Well, exactly what you said earlier. It was honesty. Like it was just, people had associated the morning shows and stuff with like, Terry and Dave Morning Zoo and, the rim shot drums and, those toys that go kind of thing. And whereas Howard Stern was more, he had his comedy skits that I never really, sometimes they hit, sometimes they didn't. But as you were pointing out earlier, it was his honesty. Like it was just, it almost paved the way for what podcasts are today. It was just people who were comfortable with each other, talking about topics that were, normally they'd say, oh, well, that's not topics you talk about in public. You talk about behind closed doors. And he was having those topics right out there on the airwaves for everybody to talk about. And, and nobody was safe with him. It didn't matter who you were. They would bring celebrities into his show, and they'd have to go on his show because he was the number one radio show in the country. So if you were promoting something, you had to go on Stern. And you go on Stern, he wasn't going to softball questions and fanboy you with your work. He was going to ask you uncomfortable questions, and either you could play along or you could make yourself more uncomfortable, and they'd feed off that and make it even more uncomfortable for you. And so I thought it was a nice change of scenery where, back then talk radio was not a big deal. Talk radio was nothing. Like our morning show, our morning talk radio show, when I was doing it at the time, they were bringing in like the lady who was in charge of the farmers market on Tuesdays to talk. It wasn't anything great. Like, you know, she wasn't going to be out there, you know, talking about her boobs. You know, she was talking about like plums and, you know, melons, like actual real melons, not real her melons.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just like the fact that it was, you know, as they said in the movie, most people tune in because they want to hear what he's going to do next, and his haters stay on even longer because they want to hear what he's going to do next.
Yeah, the average Stern fan listens for like an hour and 20 minutes, and the reason why is, you know, because they want to hear what he's going to say next. The average Stern hater listens for 2.5 hours. Well, if they hate him, why do they listen so much? Answer most commonly given: they want to hear what he's going to say next.
Experience. He was great.
Yeah.
It's a natural.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing was, too, if you look back from when he first got started, he did that, too. He started with that fake-sounding FM radio voice, and he did all that stuff. And then they really touch base on in the movie, like when he talks to his wife, and she's like, I thought the best part was when you were just being yourself. And he's like, maybe I just got to go all the way and just be myself. And the more he talked about himself and sex with his wife and stuff like that, it's just like he personalized things so much. And I got to say, like, with my own experience in podcasting, I've been doing this for a long time. I started in 2012 doing the Dear Mr. Fantasy podcast. And I'm telling you, I started out the same way. I started doing that FM voice. Hey, welcome to the show. This is the baseball podcast. And it was terrible. It was awful. And I realized I can't do that. I just got to have a conversation. And I brought in another guy, and we would just rip on each other talking about baseball. And that's when things took off. Next thing you know, we were nominated for podcast awards. We went down to Vegas, got down to meet, you know, Matthew Berry and Nate Ravitz, sort of like my idols and everything. So you got to be yourself, I think, is important. And I really like the fact, Greg, that you mentioned that kind of, or I think it was Derek that mentioned, it really paved the way for podcasts. Him just coming and being honest, just talking. I really think it's important. Let's also talk about Mary McCormick. I love the fact in this movie too, there's a blend of like actors and then people that are just radio people, and they're all kind of thrown into this thing together. Now, Mary McCormick was an actress, and she played Allison Stern. She is so important to this movie because she provides that emotional core of this film. And she did other stuff too, not a whole lot. She was in The West Wing, right? And in Plain Sight. Yeah,
a couple seasons of The West Wing. Yeah. She was in Mystery Alaska. We just did Slapshot last week. We were talking about hockey movies. She was in that one.
She probably gives the strongest performance in the film, I think. She helps ground this movie. And I would argue that this entire film, I always thought this when I first saw it back in 97, this movie is basically a love letter to his wife.
Absolutely. And the irony is, it's this movie about how he loves his wife and he couldn't be what he was without her. And they ended up getting divorced because while he was making the movie, he was away from home too much and all his problems escalated. And then he ended up getting divorced. And it's like the biggest irony. He makes this movie that's a love letter to his wife about how great his marriage is. And then he gets divorced.
I know. That's how it works. I like at the end of the movie too, when he breaks the fourth wall and he's talking about how she's like, she stuck with me all this time. You got to respect that, you know? And I thought it was a love letter to her. I thought it was really good. We have to talk about Paul Giamatti. This was probably his first major role, I would think. And he obviously plays Pig Vomit. In the book, Greg, you read the book, right?
Oh, yeah. A few times.
Do you remember what the name of this character was in the book? It was close. It wasn't Pig Vomit. He called him Pig Virus in the book.
Yeah. They changed it for the movie because they didn't want to get into legalities. I guess this is a good word.
And this is so funny. Paul Giamatti does this movie and goes on to become one of the most respected actors of his generation, like doing things like Sideways and, you know, other stuff. And unbelievable. He's won Emmys and Golden Globes, and he's been nominated for multiple Academy Awards. The thing is, you think about Howard Stern being funny, like you said, and doing all these bits. Paul Giamatti is the funniest performer in this movie, hands down. I thought, like the scenes where I
actually thought he was the strongest performer in the movie. Absolutely. Like, I know you're talking about Mary McCormick, but for me, the scene stealer in this movie was Paul Giamatti. He was great, and it was so funny to watch how young he looked. Like he looks so different.
He had hair.
You know, like he looks nothing like that. But when you look at him, you're like, my God, what 30 years has done to this guy. Like, he was so wild. I forgot how he looked 30 years ago. So to see him 30 years younger, I was like, oh my God, yeah, geez, that is him.
His performance was strong. Like, I mean, almost Oscar nomination strong. Like, he was that good. He's so memorable in this. Like, yeah, he was fantastic.
WAMBC.
That was the best. I love that scene. We'll put a pin in that. We'll come back to it.
When it first came out, there was Oscar talk. They do that a lot, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there was Oscar talk when it first came out. It never panned out, but there was talk of maybe the Oscars might consider this and that. Like back 30 years ago, that was how good that movie was considered back then.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. Robin Quivers, Fred Norris, and Jackie Joke Man Martling, all regular radio people. Norris and Martling they're okay. Martling comes across all right. Norris is a little bit uncomfortable on camera, but Robin Quivers has genuine acting ability. I thought she was like an actress in this. I thought she was great. Really, really liked it, especially the scene on the street when she was mad at him because he wouldn't quit and he wouldn't go with her. Like, she's a pretty good actress. I thought she was pretty good. I really liked that. And like I say, I like the fact that they intersperse real actors and then real people, so I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to say, without Robin, there's no Howard. Like, you need Robin in order to have Howard.
Absolutely agree.
He mentions that a couple times.
He's literally Robin to his Batman.
Yeah. And how he's like, she grounds me. She keeps me, from going off the rails and stuff like that. I want to talk a little bit about the director, Betty Thomas. So before she directed this, she was known as an actress. I remember she was on Hill Street Blues for a long time. And she did a lot of comedy back in the 70s and things like that. But she also directed the Brady Bunch movie. And she directed Dr. Dolittle, 28 Days, and John Tucker Must Die. Why I think she was the perfect director for this movie is because she just understands comedy. And what she did with this movie, which I thought was great, was the fact that you've got this movie about a shock jock. But she doesn't focus on that. She focuses on character. And I thought that was really, really important because otherwise this could have very easily just been a movie about like a collection of radio bits, And it wasn't. It was more of a character study. I thought she did a great job directing this. So let's talk a little bit about some of the themes that are going on in this movie. Obviously, there's authenticity, we mentioned, I think is important. I think fame is important as well because Stern is he's very driven and very ambitious, you can tell. But it also comes with a personal cost, and the movie touch bases on that. So I think that's good. The movie also touches base on marriage and sacrifice and things like that. And I love the battles with management, with the media establishment. Probably some of the best stuff in there. So when you watched this movie the first time, you watched it, again this time, what were some certain thematic elements that you thought were important or jumped out? Maybe Derek, we can start with you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it had been a long time, like probably a good 20 years since I had watched this movie start to finish. Like I've seen, so many things, clips of it show up in your feed and social media, or it gets referenced in something else. So you go and watch this particular scene. But yeah, I really liked how, again, I mentioned it's sort of a time capsule. This is a movie made in the 90s that's reflecting on radio in the 80s. And some of the things that they're doing, while by today's standards seem tame, were so cutting edge or over the top in a way that was done specifically to push boundaries, to go up, like you would talk about the idea of the DJ and the personality versus the establishment, and the fact that he was so popular in a relatively short amount of time was a clear reflection that what he was trying to bring to a previously very regimented media, there was a desire from the listenership to have something different, to have something that listeners could call their own. And like often happens when you have that kind of change, it's usually the younger people, like sort of the up and coming generation, that latch onto this change. And that was something that was reminded of me when I was watching this movie was, how important when he was becoming really big in the 80s, it was all of these young people growing up in the late 70s, early 80s, all these teenagers and people in their 20s and early 30s that were, they wanted to separate themselves from what was the establishment up until that point. I mean, then so many things changed in the late 70s and the 80s that this is just indicative of that time frame. And so, yeah, that whole idea of the need for change, the right person, the right place, the right time with the right idea. Obviously it's sort of that perfect storm of all of them coming together. But really, if it wasn't Howard Stern, you can bet there would have been some other similar personality that probably would have broken through, maybe not the exact same way, but would have touched on it in a way that there would have implemented change. Maybe not as fast, maybe not as in your face, but there was definitely a need for change, and that's really what stuck to me when I was watching it this time.
Greg, anything to add there?
Yeah, for me, it was. I remember when I was doing stand-up comedy, I had I opened for a veteran comic, and he was just talking to me in the green room after the show, and he said something to me that always stuck with me when I was doing it. And he said, "If you do comedy and the comedy you're doing, everybody likes it, then you're doing something wrong." And that kind of stuck with me because he was basically saying to me exactly what Howard Stern was doing, in that if you're not trying new things and you're not taking chances and sort of going out there and seeing what happens, you're never going to reach the level of fame that Howard Stern got to. So you got to see where some of his sticks, they were funny. Like when he was doing that skit about the match game.
That's my favorite part of the movie. That
was hilarious. But when he first tried it, this first day at the Detroit radio station, and he was trying the first ever black
Mama Look a Boo Boo Day
reporter, Mama Booba Day or whatever.
Mama Look a Boo Boo Day. Yeah.
Yes, Mama Look a Boo Boo Day. It didn't work. It just went flat and it failed. But he went out and he at least tried, and it didn't work. And so from what I got from that was just, you're never going to reach the level of fame and notoriety that Howard Stern reached if you play it safe and you don't do it the way you want to do it. If you play it safe and you listen to the rules and you listen to the people, it's just going to be a flat line. So it was one of those things where take chances, take risks. You fail, but what you fail with, you get better, and you know what not to do, and you work on making it better. And that's what I got from the movie, was that and not everything's going to work, but when it does work, it's magic.
Absolutely. Okay, let's take a look at the box office.
Box office mojo.
All right, the budget of this film was $28 million. It earned about $41 million worldwide, so it made some money. So 1997, Derek, I was going to give you the quiz on this one. Number one film at the box office in 1997. Take a guess.
All right. Well, Phantom Menace wasn't until 99, so we're not Star Wars. Nope. I'm going to say probably one of those Disney cartoons. Are they still pumping those out around then? Maybe Pocahontas or The Lion? No, Lion King would have been earlier. I don't know.
Greg, you want to take a shot at this one?
Armageddon. No, that was 99.
What do you think the number one movie was in 1997 at the box office? Any guesses?
Oh, was it a Schwarzenegger movie?
It was not. It was Men in Black. Men in Black.
Oh,
was
okay.
Oh, Men in Black. Okay,
right, the year of Will Smith. Yeah, Independence Day, the Men in Black. Yeah.
We think of Titanic because it came out in 97, but it came out in December 19th. So it only had like 2 weeks in the make. Even still, it finished 7th overall.
Wow.
It began with 112 million. So Men in Black was first.
And only 2 weeks.
I know. Men in Black was first. The Lost World Jurassic Park was second. Liar Liar third. Air Force One was fourth. And rounding out the top five was Star Wars, the special edition. Remember they released that in 97?
Oh, hey, I said Star Wars. I just was going in the wrong direction with it.
Yeah, I remember I took a date to go see that movie, and we get there and we're watching the movie, and she's like, "This is Star Wars." I'm like, "Yeah. What do you think?" She goes, "I thought it was like a new one. This is the old one." I'm like, "Yeah, it is. They just added some new scenes and stuff." She's like, "I thought I've seen a new one." Needless to say, we didn't go on any more dates after that. So that was that. But this movie did pretty well when you consider the fact that it was R-rated, it has niche subject matter, and it has a first-time leading actor. It's pretty impressive that this movie did as well as it did, even though, like my experience was it was me and Brian in the theater and nobody else. But because of the success of this movie, if you remember, Howard Stern used to call himself the king of all media.
Yes.
Which was really funny. I really liked. But it was pretty good. It was received pretty well by the critics as well. They liked his performance, and I think the emotional depth of the film, the supporting cast. I think critics thought it was pretty good. I think they expected a vanity project, but they got a pretty good comedy drama, I think, out of it instead. So, do you think?
I think word of mouth drove this movie. Like, yes. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but I guarantee you, it had a kind of a softer opening, and as the weeks went on, it started to earn a lot more money because people went to see it and said, "You know what? You really should check it out. It actually wasn't that bad." Like, people were skeptical, as you said, but when people started finding out that, it was getting some good reviews, people were, friends going to see it, and they were saying, oh, it's worth checking out. And this was in the day and age before internet, so you had to wait until somebody saw it before you could go hear their opinion on it, It's not like today where you can go read 1,000 reviews 10 minutes after it opened,
Yeah, Derek, do you think this movie was underrated at the time? If you think about rounding out the top 10 at the box office, were things like My Best Friend's Wedding, Face Off, Batman and Robin, which was terrible, and George of the Jungle. I feel like this movie was better than pretty much all those. So I think the movie was underrated. Even when I'm watching it this week, I was thinking the same thing. I don't think this movie was appreciated as much as it should have been when it came out.
Yeah, I agree. I think it... When it came out, too many people had too many preconceptions.
They did.
Just like with his show, right? You hear the name, you have an image in your mind, you've never listened to the show, you've never read the book, you've never seen him do an interview. You just know what you think you know because of what you think you've heard other people say. And, I mean, you still get that. That happens to this day, largely with the internet. And I think at the time, in 97, when the movie came out, the people that were going to see it no matter what the reviews said. And the people that weren't going to were likely not going to no matter what the reviews said. And it was sort of that middle area where people who just were brave enough to say, I don't really have an opinion. I like entertainment. I'm going to the movies. I don't want to see George of the Jungle or one of those other garbage movies. You know what? Let's give it a chance. And, I mean, anyone who even knew marginally a little bit about Howard Stern, you knew you were going to get bad words and boobs. And for a lot of people, that's worth what was movies back then, $7 or $8. That was worth your $8. So,
yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of people went into this only knowing Howard Stern as this controversial public persona, and that's all they knew. And what they got was something different. They got a movie that was a character study about his insecurities and his family life and his career. And I think it was not what people thought. Yes, it did have some scenes where it showed some of the, outrageous stuff that he did on the radio and stuff, but that wasn't like that didn't dominate the film. That's not what it was all about. So I thought that was really important. I just want to also debut a new segment here that's called
Here's our hot takes.
Hot takes on this movie. I got a couple. I'll start. By the way, I just want to mention I love the fact that these drops are all being done by like Morgan Freeman. It's just, I don't know how we got them. Okay, so a couple hot takes I have on this one. I would say that this movie is a better biopic than most Oscar-winning biographical films.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's so much a hot take.
Yeah. I also think Paul Giamatti should have been nominated for an Oscar for this movie.
For a movie like this, I would expect more of a Golden Globe because I know that they tend to nominate. There's two different categories, right? You got the drama and the comedy. So I think for comedies, he could have snuck in there if he wasn't. But I mean, he was good, but I don't necessarily think he was win the Oscar good. Do you have the list of who else was nominated?
Let's see here. While you're looking, I just want to mention one of the things that I liked about this movie that we didn't talk on, but I'm going to bring it up because it wouldn't be me if it wasn't, was Howard Stern was such a big reason for the success of adult entertainment movies in the 90s because he used to bring them all on his show, right? Because they'd be super open-minded to doing any crazy things he did. Like he had Jenna Jameson in the movie and stuff. And he repaid them there were a ton of 90s adult stars in this movie, like a whole bunch. And I think Howard was a big reason why the adult industry was so successful in the 90s was because he would bring them onto his show.
Oh, there we go.
Chris, you got the Oscars, sir?
Okay, here, I got it in front of me. All right, so I have it right here. The best actor in a supporting role, the winner was Robin Williams with Good Will Hunting. Pretty good.
Okay.
Robert Forster was nominated for Jackie Brown. He's pretty good.
Oh, he was really good too.
Anthony Hopkins in Amistad. Greg Kinnear in As Good as It Gets, and Burt Reynolds, Boogie Nights.
Yeah, that was a tough one because it could have gone to either Robin Williams or Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds, yeah. I think Forster should stay there. I don't know about Hopkins or Greg Kinnear. I don't know if one of those could maybe drop out for Giamatti. Probably, though, I would think. So,
yeah, I mean, looking back, yes, I agree. I mean, in the moment, I mean, As Good as It Gets went on to win, I think, Best Picture that year. Jack Nicholson won, Helen Hunt won, so it was sort of a runaway train. I don't think they were not going to nominate Greg Kinnear. But yeah, Amistad,
Best Picture was Titanic that year, actually.
Oh, it was Titanic, sorry. Yeah.
All right, so what do you say that we talk about some of the scenes? Because we were talking about that. So I want to start with when Howard meets pig vomit for the first time. I thought that was so good when first of all, just because Paul Giamatti is so, unbelievable, but that whole thing with the WNBC, and then he's like trying to say it, and he's like, it's just how ridiculous corporate radio is. I do that all the time now with my kids. All the time. We'll be talking about something. I'll be like, WNBC. And they don't have no idea where it comes from, but I do that all the time. So I thought Paul Giamatti's delivery in that scene was just comedy gold. It was so good.
Yeah. So good.
When he first meets his wife, I thought it was really good. Again, you realize it's kind of a love story. He's kind of insecure. He's not this arrogant, brash guy the whole time. I think it gives somebody, that you can root for from an audience.
Yeah.
I thought the miscarriage scene was unexpected in the movie and very emotional. It completely changes the tone of the film, shows their human side. And it also is like that. This is why the movie is more than just a collection of a bunch of radio stunts. So I thought that was really important. I mentioned before, I like when Robin gets fired. I thought that was really good because this is where Howard is probably his least likable. He doesn't quit with her. She feels betrayed. It really makes you kind of think, has success changed him? There's all, was he justified in staying with it? What do you think? You've been in radio for years, Greg. So you're in this situation, your co-host gets fired over something stupid, right? Because, pig vomit didn't like the bit you were doing. So was Howard justified in saying, he argued that he needed to stay to fight to try and get her back. But what do you think? Should he have quit?
No, he should have stayed. He meant, as he mentioned in the thing, that he had a vision, he had a goal, and he was going to stay with it. And if his friend Robin trusted him enough to stand by him, that his word was good and that he would bring her back, and he did. But it was, he had put too much time and effort into making who he wanted to be to let WNBC tell him what he can and can't do.
And going back to the thing we were talking about before about honesty, Stern was always about honesty. This movie's about honesty. I liked the honest portrayal of this whole scene going on because Howard's not presented as like this flawless hero. He makes mistakes too. And you can question, his actions and stuff like that. I thought that was important. So some of the scenes you touched base on before about some of the nudity and stuff that was going on. There's the speaker orgasm broadcast, which I thought was one of the most outrageous bits that they did. That was sort of his peak shock jock humor, that stuff. And it was like all the phone people calling in and complaining and things like that. And it was really good. I thought it was a really funny scene. So I liked that. And then also when the naked woman was in the studio and they put all the paper up on the windows so no one can look in for that's walking by. I really thought was pretty funny. I also liked I think it was different from that scene when she has the 12-inch kielbasa and he's making her swallow it. And my favorite is Ross Buckingham, who they bring in to replace Robin. And he's like, oh, yes, I did a lot of summer stock mostly. And it was so funny because he gets this girl to deep throat a 12-inch kielbasa. And he turns to Ross. He's like, Ross, in all of your summer stock days, did you ever see someone do this? It's just so funny because Ross is like, what he did to me today is so humiliating. That whole thing I thought was really, really funny. Any scenes that you liked, Derek? Before we get to the big one, you mentioned the one big one. We'll save that one till last match.
Yeah.
I like that one too.
No, I love that one. But I mean, even just some of the little things like, I'm trying to, I really liked how when you're getting the biography of his life told chronologically. And then when it cuts to college, it's Howard Stern playing Howard Stern at like 20 years old. And he said, sure, I look a little bit old. Just suspend disbelief for this movie. Just the idea of him with that bad afro wig on and the mustache and the glasses, like it's just the visual of it just made me laugh. But how many times have we seen other movies like that where they're like, you know what, this actor is totally wrong for this part, or they're too old, and it's just like, you know what, they just acknowledged it right away and said, okay, we're moving on, this is what it is, suck it up, get, like, Howard needs to be the star of this movie. Boom, we're moving forward from here.
You also told me this week, you texted me, you said, make sure if you're watching the movie, watch till the end of the credits. What was the scene there you want to talk about?
Well, just, I mean, both the beginning and the end are sort of like, so the very beginning of the movie starts with Allison Janney, and she talks about, like, so clearly someone has asked her a question. She's answering. She's like, you know, he's rude, he's vulgar. She's like, someone had said, what are your impressions of Howard Stern? What do you think of Howard Stern? And that's how the movie starts. And then through the movie, they have these sort of cutaway scenes where they have stuff like this. And then at the end, you have that where it's Kenny Pig Vomit at the very, very end, where it's like, he just mentions how it's like, you know, it's Howard Stern's fault that I'm not on the radio anymore and blah, blah, blah. He's just bitching and moaning and stuff. And
he starts out by saying, he's like, no, things are doing good for me. I'm like the manager of the mall, you know, in Mississippi. Yeah. And we're like the fourth mall in the state. It's great. And then he just starts to reflect on it for a second. He's like, that and he just starts, it gives him one final showcase, you know, which I thought was really, really good because he deserves it. And it gives some sort of closure to that whole rivalry. It just lets him go over the top. So I thought that one was really good too. I have a question for you, Greg. The scene, because you're a radio guy, the scene at the beginning when Howard's a kid and he goes to visit his father in the studio. What do you think of that? You're a radio guy. Like, that's where he got his inspiration. When he saw Symphony Sid smash and everything, and then just kind of snapped right back in when his dad yelled at him. I feel like this scene might get overlooked a little bit, but what are your thoughts on it?
Well, it brought me back to my story of in Windsor when I had to work with Joan Rivers.
Oh my!
Please do tell.
That whole chaotic incident with Joan Rivers. I immediately had a flashback to the whole Joan Rivers incident when that happened. I was like, oh my God, yeah.
You got to tell us what the incident is. What is it?
Oh, well, long story short.
Yeah.
Joan Rivers came to Windsor to promote her syndicated show. Mm-hmm. And I was working the soundboard during her time. So they're like, can you work her? Do you think you could work her time, like her board? I'm like, yeah, no problem. And I didn't think it was that big a deal, but the people at my work thought it was like the biggest deal ever. So I showed up wearing a brand new Oakland Raiders jersey that I bought and jeans. And my boss was giving me for underdressing for the show, right? I'm like, I don't think they really care what I'm wearing, but anyways. So I get the call sheet for the night, and she's on from 7 to 10, but on the call sheet it says, at 7:30 you drop the Detroit feed to put on the Michigan Wolverine basketball game, but you keep the feed up here so the rest of the syndication gets the Joan Rivers show. And I'm figuring they told her that. So 7:30 comes around, and all of a sudden I'm playing a reel saying we interrupt this program for Michigan Wolverine basketball. And I bring up the Wolverine basketball game, and I bring down the volume of her show in Windsor, and her people are freaking out at me in the studio. They're yelling at me. They're swearing at me. I'm like, whoa, man, I'm just doing what's on the sheet. Like, did nobody tell you? And they're like, no one told me, and this and that. She's yelling at me through the booth on the microphone.
Jeez.
I'm like, oh, my God. So we have to wait for commercial break, and she comes in the studio. She's chewing me out. Her manager's chewing me out. So I'm like, I get on the phone to my boss. I'm like, you got to come back in, man. This is like, they're going nuts. And he comes by about 15 minutes later, and they're just chewing him out the whole time. And I'm telling him, like, you got to get back in the booth. You got to finish your show because you may not be on here, but the rest of the country can hear you, man. And so she went back in and she used all that time to just slag our station, man. Just how terrible we were, how amateur we were. The phone lines were lighting up, and it was like the local gay bar was hosting a Joan Rivers drag show, and they were pissed off because they were celebrating Joan Rivers being in town, and then we cut the feed and all this and that. And so, anyways, after the show was done, me and my manager are standing out in the parking lot with her crew, and they're just ripping them a new one for like 15 minutes about how amateur the station is, how terrible we are. And they get in a limo and they drive away. And as the limo goes away and all of a sudden you just don't see the taillight anymore on the limo, I just look over at my boss. I go, hey, do you think they're talking about my Oakland Raider jersey right now? Oh, yeah. It just totally made me think about Joan Rivers and her meltdown when I did the show.
Oh, my
God. I didn't really like. I had that favorite scene with the match game, but two parts that made me laugh really loud weren't like entire scenes. I laughed when he went to tell his parents that he was going to go into the radio, and his father goes, "You can't be in radio. You never talk." And he goes, "Yeah, this is from the guy who tells me to shut up like 50 million times."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
nice.
And then when he's in the tub with the B movie star. And she says to him, if you keep your underwear on, it's not cheating. And he's like, I don't know. But suddenly she was starting to make a lot of sense.
She was making a whole lot of sense.
And I got news for you. I turned to my wife and said, is that true? And she just gave me a look. I still don't know the answer. So should I find myself in that position, I'll let you know.
Oh, yeah, please do. I love the fact that Fred Norris is in the hot tub with him, because I think he's not supposed to really be there. It's almost like his conscience is there, like to tell him. It's almost like the angel on his shoulder. Man, you shouldn't do this, sort of thing. So I don't know. That scene was pretty funny. I also like that when he was a teenager, Derek, you were mentioning when he was younger, and then but when he was a teenager, though, was before he was playing him. There was like another guy playing him, and he's like, but he's narrating it. And he's like, I was the only white guy in high school. There's like 200 black guys and me, and they all had rhinoceros penises. And then he starts talking about his small penis size. And he's like, because I had such a minuscule schlonger, I turned to drugs and everything. And then, he talks about it on the air. And I think that was the thing that, like, if he's willing to admit that, like, he must be an honest guy. I like when he first says it on the air. He's like, I got no bulge in my penis or in my pants. I got a small penis. And he's like, I've never admitted that to anyone before. And I love how Robin says, I don't think you should start now. I really laughed. I thought that was really funny. So... so let's get to the number one scene that we all like, which is the match game parody scene. It is probably the best scene in the movie. Oh my gosh.
Definitely, no question.
So good. So they want him to be more like Don Imus and use characters instead of speaking directly. And so he gave them exactly what they asked for. And I really love it because it's just, oh man, it's like malicious compliance. There's no other way to do it. Like,
yes, that's a great way to describe it.
It really is, because they're like, create characters, be more like Imus, and stop being Howard Stern. So Howard Stern's like, okay, I will. And then it's total chaos in that scene. Like, I just love it. And the fact that the joke is, he's doing exactly what they asked him to do. It's not even like he's being rebellious in a way. Like, he's proving that management's advice was ridiculous. So what were some things that you liked about the scene, Greg? I got lots.
For me, I just thought, again, as you pointed out, I'm one of those guys that likes to, tiptoe across the line and see what you can get away with. And, and if you do get caught, trying to find a funny way of getting out of it. And I just thought it was really, again, it was creative. They were basically, he was pissed off because they basically wanted to hire an Imus clone if they could, right?
That's what they wanted, yep.
And the only reason they brought him in was because they couldn't beat him in Washington, so you might as well join him in New York. And the thing was that when he came, they were handcuffing him, so they weren't letting him be who he was in Washington. He came to New York and they wanted him to be Don Imus. So I just thought it was really funny that he was just, again, like as you mentioned, like he was tiptoeing the line to, sort of be like, well, I'm not really being dirty. I'm just playing a match game,
I think it also captures what made him different, because
Yep.
He's not scripted, and the humor in this scene comes from chaos and eruptions and people talking over each other and these unexpected reactions. And I think that it just sort of captures that energy perfectly. Derek, you obviously you were mentioning you love this scene. So what is it about it you love so much?
I mean, I just love the the whole just the way it's put together is like blank Willow, and he's like, I didn't write mine very neatly, so I have a sloppy.
And it's those words when they're taken out of context.
Yeah.
He uses them in such a way that they're
doodle-doo.
Yeah, they're not really dirty when you take them out of context, and that's exactly what he did, which made it so. It's again just pushing it, right? That whole censorship joke, these body part references and stuff like that. So, oh my God, so good. I like that the fact that everyone gets to show off too. He's the host. Robin Quivers is doing some broad character comedy and stuff. She's doing like Brett Summers and things like that.
Yes.
And Fred Norris is doing impressions. Jackie Martling's doing joke after joke. And just the chemistry just feels authentic. I think because they weren't actors in that scene. They were the actual radio team. So it would not have been as funny if professional actors had been cast for that.
Absolutely agree.
I liked it because it showed that Stern was Stern, but Stern wouldn't be Stern without all those team players.
Yes.
That he had. Like, there were other guys on there that they didn't even like. Gary had those small parts where they were holding up the signs to say where he was moving to, and then for some reason the girl backed out because she wasn't told anything about a donkey. And then Stuttering John showed up at the end of the movie. Stuttering John played such a big part in Howard Stern's success because Howard Stern used to send him to like the autograph signings and the things like that, and he would be the one to go up and ask those really out of left field, awkward questions, like asking James Brown if his balls bounce off the floor when he does the splits and stuff. And so I like that scene particularly because, like Stern wouldn't be Stern without the supporting cast to make him Stern.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing, too, I want to mention, too, you talk about supporting characters. Paul Giamatti's reaction sells this whole scene. Like, it would not have worked without him because the audience knows what's coming. You got Howard pushing all these boundaries and stuff, and the bit's starting to get a little bit out of control. And then pig vomit just explodes. And I feel like his frustration is almost funnier than some of the jokes that they do in there. He just sells the whole thing. It was so great. Yep. And the thing is, too, this scene's important because it's a turning point in the story, too, in the script, because this scene isn't just a comedy sketch. It's almost like a declaration. I'll never fit into WNBC. Traditional radio has no interest in being original, and trying to conform is pointless. I mean, like, Greg, you're a radio guy. This FM format that we hear, I usually listen to podcasts and stuff in the car, but sometimes I'll put on FM radio. And it drives me crazy because the format, it doesn't matter what station you listen to, format's all exactly the same. It's like they pull something off the wire, they make a comment about it, and they throw it to a song. That's what their job is,
Yep.
Like, I don't know if you heard this. In Texas today, there was a man that was found walking around naked in the desert. Oh, man, he got some sand up his butt. Here's some Taylor Swift. And it's like, that's what they do every time. They'll just make some stupid comment about something. Like this poll in the United States says 30% of men, read before sleeping, read before they go to bed. Oh, man, that's not what I like to do before I go to bed. Hey, here's some Wycliffe Jean. It's like the stupidest thing. It's just follow this stupid format that is not funny,
But as you mentioned that's something I wanted to bring up is that Howard Stern was the first guy to say, I'm going to XM Sirius Radio. Like, he was like, I'm doing satellite.
That's true.
XM was like, we need a big name to get people to say we're not listening to FM format radio, as you mentioned, because of that exact reason. We are going to bring in Stern and put him on the satellite. So because you remember back when satellite first started, I mean, you had to sign up for it. Like, it wasn't in your car for a year when you buy a new car. Like, you had to specifically sign up for it. And they're like, we need a name that's going to bring people over to satellite. And Stern was the perfect choice because on satellite, you can get away with a lot more than you can on FM radio format. So he's the one who started the XM radio because exactly why people got sick of the FM radio format being, toned down and just lame jokes and then throwing it over to a Taylor Swift song. So they brought him over for that. So that's another thing that, when you mentioned the FM radio, he's the pioneer of XM radio, like satellite radio.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. So a little bit of a final verdict on this movie. I think what works is that it's actually a pretty heartfelt story. It's got a strong supporting cast. I think the pacing is excellent. I thought the direction was really, really good. Lots of quotable dialogue. And it's a real authentic portrayal of radio and radio culture. That's what I think. You guys mentioned some things that don't work. You guys felt some references and some jokes felt dated, right? And maybe non-Stern fans might miss some of the inside jokes, I guess. And
yeah, I like you were mentioning about the miscarriage. I was with you when they were talking in bed after the miscarriage, but that whole scene where he was doing it on the radio, like I know he was doing it as Howard and it would bring up a fight with his wife and whatever, but to me I was like, oh God, anytime this can end, that would be great.
Really? Because
I just thought that whole scene where he was talking with Robin about the miscarriage and he had the voice of God coming on and stuff. That's where I kind of went. 30 years ago, it didn't really bother me, but at the same time, I was only in my 20s at the time. Whereas now that I'm a bit older or whatever, I kind of felt that I was like, okay, this might be one of those shticks that didn't work.
I understand what you're saying, and I'll disagree. I'll take another tack on this one. That scene, I think, does work, and I thought it was impactful when I was watching it because he wasn't playing that so much for a joke. You could tell that was his way of dealing with it. That was his way of working through everything and purging the demons of what happened in that situation. That's what my take on it. Because again, for a non-actor, I thought he really conveyed that in his face at the end of the scene. You could see just exasperation that was on his face, and he was like, this was how he worked it out. That was my take. His wife did not agree with him, obviously, and it caused a problem, but that's why I thought it was interesting. That's why I feel this movie's a little bit deeper than most people think. I also have this
Netflix. More like this.
If you liked Private Parts, are there any other movies you'd recommend? I was thinking about what do you got?
I got a
Derek?
couple.
Yeah.
So, this one is a biopic. It's based on a real life personality that that was famous for another medium. And so there's two similar movies I want to reference. So one is the movie came out the year before this one, The People versus Larry Flint.
Oh, that's a good
which I think
one.
is an excellent movie.
Yeah.
Obviously not a comedy, but again about Larry Flint being the creator. Yeah. Controversial. That's where I'm going with it. Yeah, Larry Flint, who was the creator of Penthouse magazine. So there was that. And then a more recent one. They did a movie in 2019 starring Eddie Murphy called Dolomite Is My Name, about one of the actors from the blaxploitation era. And again, it's this idea of this sort of forgotten actor from a time gone by who maybe deserves a little more recognition, a little more credit. And it was sort of bringing it to an audience that wouldn't necessarily be familiar with that kind of work. Obviously, a much bigger gap in the Dolomite one from when it happened to when this biopic happened. But I think again, it's that idea of someone who was trying to push boundaries and try something a little different. Obviously, nowhere near as successfully as Howard Stern was, or Larry Flint for that matter. But again, it's sort of in that same vein, and it's probably one that people maybe haven't seen, but a lot of people are fans of Eddie Murphy, maybe not so much his newer stuff, but that one was actually pretty good too. So those would be my two recommendations.
Greg, you got anything for people that might like Private Parts? Anything else you might recommend?
I mean, it's somewhat similar, but not completely similar. I don't know if you remember a movie from the 80s called Talk Radio.
Yes, that's right. I remember that one. Yeah.
It actually was made in the 80s, but you could actually show it out today and remake it and just make that radio show host one of those, wound up far right wing conservative radio hosts, and the way he talks and everything like that. It was kind of similar to that, where it was a guy who, he wanted to be in radio, but the more and more he got controversial and he made outrageous claims and incited violent rhetoric and stuff. And then if spoiler alert, it comes back to haunt him. But I would say talk radio from the 80s.
That's a good one. I think Good Morning Vietnam is obviously an obvious one. I think people would mention.
Yeah.
There was one I think it was around 87, and it had Christian Slater called Pump Up the Volume. Did you ever see that one?
Oh, yeah. That's a good one, too.
Because he was kind of like doing like rogue kind of like stuff. He was doing like almost like ham radio type stuff. So there was no limits. It was like really free form radio. So he was doing that. So that kind of sort of came to mind. Let's go around and give this movie a rating out of 10. Derek, what would you give it out of 10?
So I think when it came out, I would have rated it much higher than I do now. With all these years after, I mean, I don't think it's a worse movie today than I did, but I think a little time has given me a little perspective. I think in the moment, I probably would have given it like a 9 out of 10, but I think today I would probably go with more like a 7.5 or an 8. I'll go with an 8. I'll be generous.
All right, 8. And Greg, what do you think out of 10?
I'm the same way as Derek. I think 30 years ago, I probably would have given it a 9, but after watching it yesterday, I'm going to go with a 7.
That's fair enough. I would have given it a 9 30 years ago as well. And you know what? I'm going to stay with a 9. I really enjoyed it. I think it aged really well. And I think this movie was a lot deep. At the time, too, I really did focus on a lot of the radio bits, you know, all the things we talked about tonight. But as I watched it this time, there was so much more going on in this movie, I think, thematically and with the characters. I thought it was really, really well done. And I think it holds up well. So I think it's good. I do have one more question for you guys, because I always got to lean on you, Derek, with this newer stuff. If Howard Stern were doing this today, if he were getting started today in the age of podcasts and YouTube and TikTok, would he be even bigger, or would you think he'd just get lost in the noise?
I think with the popularity of what the internet has become, that you don't have as big a single audience as you used to. Like, think when we grew up, Chris, even with like TV, there was like 3 major networks. You were watching one of those 3. And when it came to like things like syndicated radio, and no matter how big your radio audience was, like we live in Toronto, which has got many, many radio channels. But again, there were only so many of each kind of format. So I think in the moment of when Howard Stern was coming out, it was that there weren't a lot of alternatives. I think with the internet today, people just can go to listen to what they want to listen to, and they're not as likely to just randomly stumble upon something and go, oh my God, this is different. I'm going to listen to it. As you might have been back in the day, where it's like, well, I turned on my favorite radio channel and suddenly they're syndicating this show. Well, you know what? I'm in the car for 35 minutes on my way to work. I might as well give it a listen. So no, while I do believe that someone could become this popular, I think it would have to be done in a very different kind of way.
Yeah, Greg, does Howard Stern make it to the top if he started today?
No, I'd get lost in the noise he himself created.
And I think
he was the original. He's the OG, but in 2026, he would just like, even on the XM radio, do you really even hear about him that much anymore?
True. I think when he started, he was so different and so unique because, like to Derek's point, there wasn't a whole lot out there. So it was maybe easier to stand out and be different, whereas now there's so much to pick from. There's so many people doing this sort of thing. Someone is going to be doing this already. You know, you wouldn't have the opportunity to be quite as unique. So probably a good point.
Yeah, he's patient zero. He's patient zero and all that. Like literally, he's the start of it all.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's say that we have something.
Fun with Caveman.
All right, this one's going to be for both you guys. We're going to try, I was thinking about debuting a new game today, if you guys are game for it. And it's called this.
Sequel or not?
Sequel or not. Okay, that's the name of the game, according to Morgan Freeman there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the title of a film. All you got to do is tell me, is it a real movie or not? Is it a real sequel or not? Is it not exist? Did I just make it up? So sequel or not? Okay, the first one. Remo Williams, The Adventure Continues.
Oh, that's fake.
No, that didn't have a sequel.
That's right. That one never was. All right, 4 Fast, 4 Furious.
That's fake.
It is. How about Leprechaun, Back to the Hood?
That's so real. I've seen it.
It is. It's like the 6th installment of that franchise. All right, 22 Jump Street.
Oh, real.
All right, Labyrinth 2, The Goblin King's Heir.
That sounds fake.
It does sound fake.
It is. Made it up. National Treasure 3, The Lost Colony.
No, that
I'm
gotta
gonna
be
go
fake.
fake.
All right, 2010, The Year We Make Contact.
That's real.
That's real. Yeah.
How about The Rage, Carrie 2?
Yep, it's real. I saw it.
Zoolander 3, Blue Steel Forever.
No, it's fake.
It's
That's
gotta
a
be
great
fake.
title.
A Dangerous Man, Lawrence After Arabia.
No, that's fake.
That's a real movie from 1992, guys. It is
Shut
real.
up.
Yeah, not to be confused.
Come on.
Not to be confused with Lawrence of Arabia. Okay.
That one's real. Greg's seen that one too.
Tool.
Yeah, I believe Greg has that one on VHS. Okay. The Final Conflict. The Final Conflict.
I have no
I
idea.
want to say that's real.
It is. It's from 1981. It's the third installment of the Omen movies, The Final Conflict.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that one in the
Yes.
theater. Okay. The Sandlot Extra Innings.
No,
No.
that's gotta be fake.
You are correct. I made that one up. The Sting 2.
That's real.
Gremlins 3, Feeding Time.
Not real.
All right, and the last one, the Great Escape 2, The Untold Story.
No way. No, that's fake.
No.
Starring
come
Christopher
on.
Reeve from 1988. Absolutely a real movie. Yes, it was.
Are you sure
a
that
sequel.
wasn't
Wow.
The Great Escape 2 Electric Boogaloo?
No, of course not. That was one of my favorites, that's for sure. All right, well, you guys did pretty good. You got most of them. So, I mean, we're gonna have to do a topic next time out. But I did want to say, Greg, thanks again for joining us. This was great talking about this radio movie. It's great to have you back on. You're going to come back and join us again sometime, right?
Absolutely. I was saying to Derek before we started, you know when the last time you had me on here was? June 4th of last year.
Oh my gosh! So there you go. We got to make this a little bit more common. We can't let that
That's
go.
what I
that
said.
long.
That's on us. That's our bad
Yeah.
for not inviting Greg back.
Yeah, we got to get you.
No
on
worries, man.
that. All right.
Hey, again, Night Riders, man, with the jousting motorcycle guys.
Oh, the one from
If you're doing
'81,
it,
the
you gotta
George
get
A.
me on for
Romero.
Night Riders.
Oh wow, you want to do
Yes,
that one?
George A. Romero.
Oh yeah, I remember that movie.
I got 3 movies that I want to do with you guys: Night Riders, Megaforce, and Showgirls. You do any of those 3, I will come on, no problem.
Megaforce is the one with Barry Bostwick, where they're like flying in the air on the motorcycle. Is that the one? Looks like they had like $5 left in the budget, and then hey, let's shoot this. Yeah. Oh God, that was terrible.
It's the guy from Rocky Horror Picture Show, right?
Rocky Horror Picture Show. Yep, Barry
The guy who
Bostwick.
sings
You got
Damn
it.
Janet song. Yeah,
That's the one. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll think about those 3 movies. They're all very enticing. We may even do one next week and bring you back. We'll talk about this when we go off the air here. But until then, I'm Chris McBride on behalf of myself and Derek Myers. We want to say thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World. You can contact Chris and Derek at popgoesyourworld.com. Please take a minute and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.